The following program is seen statewide on California Public Television and is a California's Gold holiday classic. Joel Roberts Poinsett was the first American ambassador to Mexico in 1825. While traveling through the little town of Tasco, he saw these beautiful flaming red wildflowers growing on the hillside. He was fascinated, and being an amateur botanist, he further studied the plant and sent several back to his greenhouse in South Carolina. It was not until 10 years later that the worldwide organization that collected and named new plants decided to honor the man who first discovered and recorded them. The flowers were officially named Poinsettias. And for years now, in fact, as long as anybody can remember, thank you very much for this poinsettia. These beautiful flowers have been part of the Christmas tradition, the holiday tradition, literally all over the world. Every Christmas time, nurseries and florist shops and supermarkets sell these poinsettias by the millions. They are very popular. But as popular as they are, and as connected with the holidays as they are, there's something about these poinsettias that most of us don't know. And that fact is that these poinsettias are fine examples of California's gold. The Poinsettia California connection can be found in northern San Diego County, in the nice little town of Encinitas. It's there the Paul Ecke Ranch is located, and this ranch and the family who own and operate it are legend. They've been breeding, growing, and selling poinsettias for almost a century now. And if you want to know just how important their story is, it's estimated that 80% of all the poinsettias in the world got their start right here in Encinitas on the Ecke Ranch. Well, here we are in an absolute forest of poinsettias, and I'm here with Paul Ecke Jr. Paul, you wanted to start our visit in this particular field because it relates to the history of your family. So I'm interested in how the Ecke family got here to start with.
Well, it all started in 1902, Huell. My grandfather was in Germany, decided he wanted to go to someplace other than Europe and take his family. Because he was a vegetarian and was running a sanitarium and a health resort, he was convinced that going to Samoa was a place to start life over again because everything was so wonderful. You could live easy in Samoa.
I've never heard of anybody leaving Europe to go to Samoa.
Right.
That was adventuresome to start with.
Well, particularly since they were all geared and they planned to do that. And then at the last minute, a friend had just returned from what he called the land of milk and honey in those days. It was Hollywood, California. And so in 1902, instead of going to Samoa from Genoa, Italy, they went to Ellis Island and then to California.
And when they got to Hollywood, did they immediately go into the flower growing business?
Well, my grandfather, Albert, had some fruit trees, some vegetables, and some flowers, and poinsettias were a part of that. And it wasn't until 1919 when he died, my father, Paul Ecke Sr., took over the family business and dedicated his life to the poinsettia.
Now, I've seen the pictures of that original poinsettia ranch, or would you call it a ranch or a farm? Or
that's exactly what we call it, a poinsettia ranch.
A ranch, and what was so amazing about it, it was right on the side of Sunset Boulevard.
It was for years, in many different areas along Sunset Boulevard is where my father farmed. In those days, the realtors had prepared the land for development, but couldn't find any buyers, so they leased the land to him. Only some of them actually gave him the land and the water so he could beautify the property and bring the tourists out at Christmas time to see the property because of the flaming red fields.
So if we had been along Sunset Boulevard back in the 20s, we would have seen fields of poinsettias like this.
Absolutely.
In full bloom, which
bloom.
must have been quite a tourist attraction in themselves.
It was a marvelous sight, and it went on for years. Actually, it was along Sunset Boulevard, and then when they first started UCLA and the fields were and the hills were cleaned, my father farmed on UCLA for some years.
Really?
And then he had the 4 corners at Sunset and Sepulveda until, of course, things changed. But for years, that's what we did, was to farm those 4 corners at Sunset and Sepulveda.
Now, at some point, they decided to leave Hollywood and come here to Encinitas.
Right, and that was in 1923. The real estate pressure became such that my father thought he had to get out of town, find a farm where there was some good land, sunshine, water, frost-free, and he came here to Encinitas in this particular field in 1923.
And that's why we're here, because
Absolutely.
this was literally your father's first field.
Absolutely, right
of
here.
poinsettias in Encinitas.
And this field has been in poinsettias continually since 1923.
You know, everywhere you go on this ranch, you are surrounded with Ecke family history. You told me this house here is historical.
Well, it is. In 1923, that's where my mother and father came, and that's where they lived when they started the business here in Encinitas. And that barn there, called Barn 2, was there at the same time, and those buildings today are well over 100 years old.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Well, this guy isn't over 100 years old. Who's this?
This is Paul, my son Paul, and who is running the business now. It's his business, and he's doing a fine job.
Now, you are Paul the...
Paul the Third.
Paul the Third. So you are in a long line of Eckes running the Poinsettia ranch here.
That's right. And welcome to the ranch, Huell.
Well, we're delighted to be here, standing in front of, well, this is where your grandparents lived, right here.
That's right. That's where my office is today.
Do you get this sense of history around you all the time?
We really do have a great history, and that really makes this whole business a lot more fun than otherwise. But we're also pretty proud of our future, too, so history's good, but future's better.
Paul, this is amazing. I had no idea that this was such a big operation.
Well, it certainly is, and wait till you see it in December. Then it's even more amazing.
Yeah, because it's all green now.
It's green now, but it'll be beautiful in a few weeks, actually.
Now, where, oh my gosh.
Now, this is a mother plant house. We keep these as green vegetative plants all year round because, think about it, at the end of Christmas, growers need to restart and start over with poinsettias each year. So what we do is we keep this green, and then in next summer we'll take cuttings like this and we will plant pots with this cutting, and that will grow roots and turn into a blooming plant.
So wait a minute, poinsettias are not planted with seeds. They're planted like this.
They're planted with cuttings, what we call vegetatively propagated. We do some seeds when we're doing a breeding program, but we don't do seeds to reproduce the plant. This is actually a genetic clone. When we take a cutting off this plant will be exactly the same as this plant in every respect, because it's an exact genetic clone.
And this whole green, you call this a greenhouse?
Correct.
Because it's hot in here.
It's hot and humid because you remember poinsettias came from Mexico, the jungles of Mexico, south of Mexico City, and this is what the jungles feel like, and so that's where poinsettias are most at home.
Wow, just as far as you can see, this whole greenhouse is full of mother plants. Now, how long will the mother plant last? Do they last year after year, or?
They will last year after year, but we like to replace them about every 18 months for a variety of reasons. The vigor will go after that time, as well as it's harder and harder to spray for bugs, if there are any bugs, deep inside the canopy. So now, here you can see that we are replanting now.
Yeah, these are little mother plants.
Right. And the really the amazing thing about this business today is the amount of planning it takes. This, what you see here, is probably Christmas 2000 or maybe 2001. The cycle is very long today. We've got to be picking the colors and the varieties far, far in advance now.
Now you know what color each one of these, you've got them labeled and numbered.
Yes, I do.
And
here is a little trick. You notice that the petiole of this stem has no real pigmentation. That means it's either going to be a white or a pink.
Wait a minute, there's something white on my hands.
Well, that's the latex. That's the latex that they actually used to make rubber, I think, in the World War II. But this petiole here has very little pigmentation, so that's going to be a pink. When we get to a red, I'll show you. This is actually a little bit more pink.
You got this down.
You can see that this is this is red. This is going to be a red. This is going to be a pink. And if there's absolutely no tinge at all, it will be a white.
Wow. But they never bloom in here.
No, because we keep the lights on all the time. They think it's summertime forever.
Oh, you turn these lights on at night.
We turn the lights on at night, so they think it's summertime constantly. We're always breeding new poinsettia varieties, and that's really that's where it really all starts, is when we're actually breeding the poinsettias. But then we start with the mother, then goes the mother plants, and then we end up here with a blooming plant. And this blooming plant is a few months old, and as you can see, we started with one of those cuttings.
One of these.
One of those cuttings.
So it all starts with this.
With that. Exactly.
And becomes this.
Exactly, and you plant it in the pot. This particular product has 4 cuttings in it, so each one of these is going to have its own flower. And when you see this in December, you are going to be totally amazed. The flowers will be 14 inches across and one of the most gorgeous things you've ever seen. And when you multiply that times the whole greenhouse,
look at
it is going to be spectacular.
Well, thank you very much for the tour.
Okay.
We have seen it all.
See you in December.
We'll see you in December. Let's take a look at it now as it exists, quiet and green, and compare it with what it's like when we come back a little over 6 weeks from now. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. In 6 weeks, it's turned from green to red.
Well, I told you were in for a treat, Huell. This is what happens every year. We've got this spectacular display, and now we're actually starting to ship the product.
Yeah, because when we were here the last time, we were basically in here by ourselves.
Right.
Now you've got a lot of activity going on back here. There's a lot of packaging. Where are these going?
They're going, these are probably getting packed to go down to Los Angeles, up to Los Angeles. Maybe they're going to Santa Barbara, Phoenix, Las Vegas, who knows, but they are going to florists around the area here.
So these are the plants that we're going to see in the grocery stores and in the florist shops all over Southern California and really throughout the West.
Exactly. And so, as you can see, that they're carefully packing each individual flower, making sure that everything stays together. And then these will only be in the box for maybe 48 hours if it's done right.
So they're literally leaving here right now and going to the retail outlet.
They're being packed today and will move tonight and hopefully be in the florist shops tomorrow. This plant, you can see, it's left all by itself. It's a reject. This is not made the grade. And why? Probably
looks like a perfectly beautiful poinsettia to me.
For most people, they would call it perfect, but you notice that these 2 flowers are a different height than these 2 flowers. It's not evenly balanced. The ones that we're packing are flat across the top, and it's nice, but it's not an Ecke quality poinsettia.
So what's going to happen to this thing?
Well, it will get sold, but in a different channel, and not as a Paul Ecke poinsettia.
This is probably the one you're going to give me as a gift when I leave.
That's for you. That's a good idea.
Well, wait a minute. Here's another one right over here.
Well, you can have this one too if you want.
But I mean, These are beautiful.
Right, but they're not perfect, and the ones that we sell are perfect. So it's too bad, but not everybody makes the grade.
Okay, that one's for me, this one's for Louie.
Okay.
And we'll move on.
Okay.
Now this is a whole nother look here.
This is a different color, but you notice these aren't quite ready. These flowers are not quite expanded to their full dimension, and then the centers aren't totally developed. These will probably be ready in about a week, maybe
What
4 or 5
color is
days.
this?
This is pink, a hot pink.
And
this
is
Monet. And
Monet.
Monet has that very interesting look with sort of the light pink background with a little dark pink dots on it.
Now why have we got this?
The plastic.
Oh, look at this, Louie.
The plastic is to keep the two different environments. Because we sell poinsettias at all different, days in December, these are being either held back or pushed forward, probably being held back because it's a little cooler in here. That plastic controls the environment from one side to the other.
Too bad poinsettias don't smell, because in a greenhouse like this right now,
boy,
the smell would be overwhelming.
You're
Look
right about
at
that.
this. This is just...
So you can you see that this is not quite ripe? It's still beautiful, but it's not quite ready to go yet. You can still see some green on the top. We come back here in 3 or 4 days, totally red.
Wow, this just goes on and on. How many acres of this have you got?
We've got about 40 acres under cover.
Gosh.
This greenhouse
I've never
right here is
seen
about 3
anything
acres.
like this before.
Wow,
It's
look at
literally, oh my gosh.
These guys are almost ready.
The color just hits you.
Yes, it does.
Oh,
Look at the size of those flowers. So, I mean, this is pretty amazing, I think. Look at how big that is. Now,
that's a healthy plant.
And that's not even ready to go yet. That still has a few more days on the bench. Well, Huell, this is our breeding facility. This is where all these new varieties get created. And as you might imagine, none of these just happen by accident. They're all a result of a very focused breeding program.
Look at this. Now, what are you doing in here?
I'm writing plant patents for their new varieties.
Plant patents?
That's right.
What do you mean by that?
Just like you can patent inventions, you can patent new varieties that have been bred.
Really? So now give me an example of one that we're getting ready to patent today.
We're writing a patent on something called silver bells.
Silver bells.
This is actually the comparison variety. Silver bells is here.
Oh, okay, down here.
This is silver bells.
This is silver bells. And what, do you take a picture of it here? And
Yes, I photograph it, and then I, in very great detail, I match colors to the Royal Horticultural Society color chart.
Oh my gosh.
And tear the flowers apart, describe every piece of it, the habit of the plant, everything the culture of the plant.
And then send it into the government.
I work with a patent agent who writes it up and sends it into the U.S. Patent Office.
Wow, how interesting. All right, so silver bells is getting patented, right?
That's right.
Thanks to your good work. Good luck to you. And who is this gentleman right here?
This is Franz Freeworth. Franz is our head plant breeder, and he's been with us for 36 years as of yesterday.
So you know what you're talking about when we talk about poinsettias.
Well, I think I know some poinsettias from inside out, and with the 36 years what I spent on them, they were very rewarding, because poinsettias were really something very fragile at the very beginning, where they did not last well, and we had to really be satisfied with a lasting of 5 days or 6 days before they lost their leaves.
Now wait a minute, is that what we're talking about from the early days? Paul?
Actually, this right here is an example of one of the older varieties. You notice smaller flowers, smaller bracts. Mostly it's very floppy and
kind of a gangly,
and it's not full in the center. This is what poinsettias used to look like. Now, it was still pretty and it bloomed at Christmas, but it really is nothing like we've got today, thanks to Franz and his people.
These are the kind of poinsettias that your great-grandfather and your grandfather and even really your father in the early days
Exactly.
grew outside, not inside these greenhouses.
Right. This was much more typical of those older varieties, yes.
Okay, and then Franz took
Franz
over.
showed up and he started...
And show us the kind of things that you're growing now through all this breeding.
First I want to show you one plant, just a plant which you can see it's a very firm stem. It's very compact and beautiful brag presentation. You can look at the lower end, the dark leaves, which are very, very attractive. And what we can say, it's lasting for 4-6 weeks or longer.
Boy, he gets excited when he talks
Sure.
about poinsettias, don't you?
That's a very rewarding result what we have with these plants, and I'm very excited what we can show you.
Well, it took you a lot of years to come up with this. How many different varieties do you have in here?
We have at present up to 600 to 700 individual varieties, and as you would look into, each row represents one variety, and all you see in the area, these benches are full with individual varieties.
New varieties. Show us a new variety that nobody else has seen yet.
We are most excited around because of our latest development. We have plants like this which were never seen from other people, and these plants will be a revolutionary introduction.
But now they're not in the stores this year, are they?
They are in the only in one color, and it's red, and it's called winter rose.
But this hasn't hit the stores yet.
Did not be introduced to stores yet. They will be next year.
Oh, so we're getting a little preview here. Now, have we named it? Has it been patented yet?
They are in the process of patenting, and names will come afterwards.
Boy, this, look at this one.
Would be a beautiful plant for weddings if you can see a somewhat different shape, but for weddings or even what we are doing now, even using it as cut flowers in vases. They make a beautiful arrangement.
This is absolute. And wait a minute, here are poinsettia. Looks like a little tree.
This is winter rose, which shows that you can grow them not only as a regular potted plant, but also as a tree. And they really make a beautiful show and a different appearance for Christmas.
And look at this one. This one is
This one is a dwarfer variety, which grows very compact. And if you look at what the characteristic of it is a cranberry color. And the center, if you look at the center, it's like a button. Very, very tight and very attractive. So we have this variety.
And look over here, these are just beautiful. Well, these are what are these called again?
These are Monets, which are on the market for a few years, and they are most attractive in our selections, and people are very, very pleased with the Monet selection.
I better put this one back. I don't want to hurt any of your poinsettias. You jump all over me. You love these things, don't you?
Well, these are my babies at this stage, and I'm always proud once they leave and I can share it with other people.
Now, just as I got used to all that beautiful color, you brought me back to green again.
Right. Well, you know, Huell, everybody thinks of us during Christmas because that's when we are very public with all that color. But you know what? Right now, this is the beginning of December, and we are working today for Christmas 1999. What you see here is Christmas. You're looking into the future. We're planting cuttings here into this oasis that will then be grown for next year. And so it's a never-ending cycle here at the ranch, and it's what we take a lot of pride in our responsibility, because if we mess this up, well, you can just cancel Christmas.
Well, I wonder if old Joel Roberts Poinsett, back in 1825 down in Tasco, Mexico, when he spotted those first poinsettias growing wild, had any idea what he was getting into. And as a matter of fact, I wonder if your grandfather, back at the turn of the century when he started growing these things here in California, had any idea what he was getting into. Do you think he would be amazed at how this whole thing has grown over the years?
I'm sure he would. I'm sure he would.
He didn't have any idea it was ever going to be like this, did he?
No, sir. Not at all.
Well, it's big, and your son has been, and we want to thank you for the tour.
Our pleasure, Huell.
Has taken us throughout the facilities here, explained to us the history of poinsettias, how you grow them here, the fact that it's a year-round proposition. And as we were walking down here to the field, you mentioned a historical fact about this very field.
Well, it was 75 years ago this month that my father harvested his first crop of poinsettias right out of this field.
In Encinitas.
In Encinitas, right here.
So this is a part of California history right here. Before that, he was up in Los Angeles. But wherever it was that the Ecke family grew in the past and continues to grow now in the present and into the future, these poinsettias, I think we've all learned to appreciate their history, your family connection with them, the beauty of them. It's something that we celebrate here in the holidays. And these poinsettias are very much a part of California's gold. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this California's Gold Holiday Classic. If you'd like to see this program again or share it with family and friends, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away. And happy holidays!